All right, we'll begin shortly here. Chuck, I think I muted you.
My whole thing. All right.
Sorry about that. All right, Chuck, are we good to go?
Yeah.
All right. So it's October 14th, and it's being 7 o'clock. We'll begin the conservation meeting. Tonight's meeting is being run from our Zoom. We've been doing this for a few months now, so I think at this point we can, Chuck had a great speech going, but I think we've kind of got the handle of what's going on. We're going to run through the items on the agenda. The agenda is posted on the conservation. Sorry?
That seems pretty definite. We were going to eliminate it for tonight because it wasn't modified into a shorter version.
Into a shorter version.
You're going to hear it again at the next meeting.
All right, we'll start it up again soon. The agenda is available on the Conservation Division webpage, as well as the items, sheets for the project if you'd like to follow along. If you'd like to comment on any of the project, there's a raise your hand feature in the meeting. Please feel free to use that. If you don't feel like you had a chance to get in a comment, you can always email the Conservation Division through the conservation page on the town website. With that, I'm going to do a quick roll call for members of the commission. Remember this order that we go through. This is how we'll end up voting, and then we'll start the meeting. Michael Flynn, Chair. Anika?
Anika Scanlon, Vice Chair.
Martha?
Martha Moore, Member.
Dave?
Dave Bennett.
David Panett, Member.
John?
John Sullivan, Member.
Carl?
Carl Saccone, Member.
And Scott?
Steve, Member.
All right. I think that's it for the commission tonight. So we'll get to the first item on the agenda. 14 Strawberry Hill Lane. This is a continuation of an RDA for an application filed under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 13, Section 140, Reading Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The project is to cut down 5 trees, and all work is within a 100-foot buffer zone and a potential vernal pool. Just as a recap of where we left last time, we gave the indication to the applicant that the commission didn't have an issue with the 5 trees that were coming down. There was a decision made that they should get on the schedule with the tree cutter, and that was acceptable. What we did want the commission to do and look at and think about is what the replacement requirement would be. We asked to try to get out there and see the site if you could, and understand whether whether plantings were possible in the area, or whether the replacement needed to just be through the something like our donation to the Shade Tree Fund. So with that, I'll just make sure I've somewhat summarized that, but I'll turn it over to the applicant if there's anything else. I don't know if there's, Chuck, do you know if they're here? Oh yeah, Brian.
Yeah, Brian's here.
Yeah. Brian, you there?
I'm here.
Did I capture it about right?
Yeah, you got it right. I don't know who actually was able to make it out. We saw Dave and Martha both here. They knocked on our door and walked the property. Did not get a chance to talk to anybody else if they did come by. But yeah.
Yeah, Kib, I actually I went by the, your neighbors were, who has an application was actually planting, they've got a line of, planting that's going along like the edge of their yard as they were doing it at the time. So I guess I want to just kick this off right away with the commission. Martha and Dave, sounds like I know you guys were there. Anybody else that was there? What's Martha, Dave, do you guys have an opinion on what you see?
I had spoken before and I had said that once they cut these Allianthus trees, there's a significant number of small trees that are existing in that area that will then lead to succession growth of those trees. There's quite a few maple trees that are right in the area of those Allianthus trees that are kind of ready to go take their place. And in those areas, because of the density of those smaller saplings that are in the area, I really don't know where you plant 5 extra trees in that area. It's very dense. Anything you plant in there is going to be problematic to make it grow because of the lack of sunlight. And I know that the applicant, when I made the site visit, had said they preferred. They expressed to me that they would prefer to donate to the Shade Tree Fund rather than to plant additional plantings in the yard. Seeing that what was already there from past plantings from the previous applications for what they did in the lot.
Okay, Martha?
Hi. I pretty much agree with Dave. And then I didn't have a paper copy of the plan with me when I went to visit. And I went back and pulled it up on the computer and compared. And along the fence near trees 1 and 2 that they want to take out, there are actually 2 or 3 red maples already planted that don't show up on the plan from March 31st, 2017. So it looks to me like they've, in effect, already replaced 3 trees along that fence that are being shaded by the Ailanthus trees right now. The only place I could see that it would make sense to put in anything is up near the street. They have an alternating row of hydrangeas and lavender, which again is not exactly what it calls for on the plan, but it looks to me like there are a couple of gaps in their row of alternating hydrangeas and lavenders. And, you know, if you really wanted to squeeze in a couple more plants, you could fill in those gaps with 3 or 4 lavenders. But that's the only place I really see that you could add any plants at this point. The ground cover is pretty thick underneath the wooded area. There's not a lot of open space. There's a lot of green leafy ground cover. I didn't apply it carefully.
Yep.
Anybody else? Yeah. So, yeah, I think at the last meeting I had expressed some interest to try to get whatever we could in there, and you know, ultimately when I went out, it looked like there's not a lot of room, whether it's on the low side of that retaining wall or really much of anything to put anywhere. You know, Dave, I think ultimately I agree with you. You know, I would love to see something else go in there, but it seems healthy. There were more trees in the area of 3, 4, 5 than I recall. And so, you know, I don't necessarily have a good feel for if there's another spot for anything to be added. So. Any other comments from the commission?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing, my knowledge of Ailanthus trees is that even if you cut them down, their roots might try to send up root suckers in various places. And I'd encourage the homeowners to try to pull them as they come up and try to avoid having a thicket of Ailanthus take over.
Okay. So I mean, I think what we've heard is there's a lot of growth out there, and there's not much else to do. I think my next question would be, what's the feel for, what we think is compensation if this is a donation to the Shade Tree Fund, so that additional trees could be planted somewhere else in town if that's what we're looking for.
I would think that
Dave, you have
a $500 donation to the Shade Tree Fund would be in order for 2 trees cut down, for the trees that are cut down.
Is Chuck, remind me of the policy. What do we've generally said that $500 is the max when we're doing a project that fits under the policy, which is like, what, 3 trees or less?
4 trees or less.
4 trees or less?
So this is actually steps over the policy in a couple of ways. Once with the original plan, went through with a notice of intent, but they met the tree policy requirements through that original notice of intent. And then this is 5 trees from what I see on the plan, and that's 1 tree over the tree policy. So it's up to the commission about mitigation. So you're not held to $500 for this mitigation. And this is also, I guess lastly, this is also the first time that the same property has come back to us. So you're going to help, start with a precedent here about how to handle other people that come and ask for additional trees. Usually I've gotten some requests lately that a year later to come back and ask, and I've asked them just to go through the RDA process, knowing that the tree policy wouldn't work twice for even 4 trees. So those 3 things to think about.
Yeah, I mean, just as far as the process, I mean, I think this is what's happened here is, even if this were 4, I think this is the right process to send this back to RDA. I think that in general, when we put an order of conditions out or something like, we've got the language in there that says they can't come back for an additional, I forget exactly what the language is, but the additional trees that were meant to be saved here. I think it's, in general, separate from this project, I think it's appropriate that the commission look at each specific case. I think, I guess my take would be, this is a little bit above what we typically have for what's under the tree policy, and this is a property that is, near a potential vernal pool. I mean, to me, we've decided we can't fit anything else, but just from a mitigation factor, because of that, I'd like to see more into that fund, and so, I mean, I'm not thinking much more, but I think I'm in the 750 range.
Can I just speak quickly on this matter? I mean, we're taking 5 invasive trees out, so by nature, are we not improving that area by removing them? We've already spent thousands of dollars in tree planting here, and then that was 3 years ago. We didn't take any trees out. It was a vacant lot. So that last project was upwards of $10,000 in planting. We've already spent money to get an arborist out here. We spent hundreds of dollars again to do the letters to the abutters. We're spending thousands of dollars to get rid of 5 invasive trees. I just want to keep saying that word, invasive tree. So I don't know why we're getting treated any different than other people. It seems a bit unfair if you're asking for us to spend more than $500 here.
I don't know that this is any different. I think when we're referring to the $500, that's referring to a project that has 4 trees or less.
I mean, we could leave one of the invasive trees if you really want, if that's gonna make the whole property better. We're getting rid of bad trees. These are not native to New England. They're not helping that area. They're causing other plants not to bloom properly. Again, it seems a bit overkill in that respect.
You know, they're not those trees are not kryptonite. They provide shade, they provide habitat, they provide nesting. They are invasive, and sometimes invasive simply means that they're not native to Massachusetts or New England. You know, I understand that they're on your property, but this property was left vacant for a long time because of that vernal pool, and the trees were cut down by the developer that ended up leaving, and there was a bunch of trees. It wasn't vacant, it was fully wooded.
Yeah, when we showed up, it was a vacant lot.
Developer. Well, this commission, some people on this commission had to go through that and had to approve those trees. The requirements with the property go with the homeowner, and that's why you guys closed out those old orders of conditions. But, you know, to get back to what your point is that why you're being treated differently. You are the first one that has come back on the same property to ask for more trees to come down under the tree policy. And the commission, the chair just stated that it should be an RDA. It can't be just simply an administrative approval, and that we're not held to the $500 cap that is stated in the tree policy, because we're really not working under those guidelines.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. Go ahead, Martha.
Could I suggest perhaps $500 to the tree fund plus a few lavenders up near the street where there is room to put a couple? That might be a compromise that improves their property and limits the amount of money they're donating to the tree fund.
Sounds good to us.
Yeah, I suppose I'm fine with that. Scott, any thoughts? Carl?
I think that sounds fair to me.
Yeah, I'd agree.
The area I'm suggesting is in the plot plan, yeah, a little lower there. Just between
This area?
the other side of the driveway. Yeah, down there. There's some hydrangeas, but they don't have lavender. So sort of long in there, and that still is within the 100-foot boundary. And I would say 3 or even 2 would be easily fit, possibly 4 if you really wanted to push it. So that could be equal to a tree if 2 shrubs is a tree. And then that makes 4 trees plus a couple of shrubs.
Okay. That works for me. I think that makes sense based on what I saw. Any other items or suggestions? Any comments from the public? All right. And do I hear a motion? Go ahead, Carl. Oh, go ahead, Martha.
Motion- Yeah.
I'll move that for 14 Strawberry Hill Lane, we
This is
approve
an RDA.
an RDA. Is this a negative or a positive RDA?
So a
It's a
negative,
negative RDA. And if you wanted, it would be checking off N3.
Okay, and where do we talk about the $500 for the tree fund?
You could say as amended or as discussed, with mitigation as discussed, I think is fair.
I move that we have a negative RDA as, with mitigations as discussed for 14
Okay.
Strawberry.
Do I hear a second for the negative determination?
Second.
Carl, I'm sorry, Dave. Thank Michael
Second.
Flynn. Approve.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
David Panett in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Scott Keith in favor.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. All right. Moving on to the next item in the agenda. This is 18 and 22 Small Lane, request for certificate of compliance for DEP file numbers 270-532 and 270-537. RGB number 2008-14 and 2008-15. Chuck, if you could remind me, and Martha, maybe you could help out here because you guys visited the site. So the part of this has been, we've made a couple site visits here. There was part of one of the certificate of compliances was to remove invasives and do some planting. And I think that what's in question right now is, so a contractor went out recently and did some additional invasive removal. And so the question is, has what has been planted taken over enough? Is it in good shape and adequate for their certificate of compliances? Did I summarize it okay, or can you clarify?
So we met with the homeowner and we walked the property. Norris Environmental, we asked Norris Environmental to go out and evaluate what had grown in and the severity of the invasives that did grow in and took over. And they basically said it's not something that they want to do. And so me and Martha went out there and we took a look at it and agreed that there was a lot of problems out there, and asked the homeowner, after reviewing both properties, to remove the invasives. And at that point, we would take another look and see if planting was needed. And so it's important that people did take a look, because the second step would have to, what's happened is the invasives are removed, and now there's this whole area that's just open. And there's some material inside of that removal area that can grow in, but there's a lot more in back of it that can grow forward, or also lawn. So I'm interested in hearing from what other people thought of what it looked like, or if it wasn't enough time for people to actually get out there and take a look.
Chuck, I went out to the site and I viewed everything that was taken out in the area. Certainly all the multiflora rose that was there is gone. It's not there anymore. The area is pretty well cleaned up. And now it's, I guess, it would be back to the original order of conditions where it be left to its vegetated state.
The original order asked, we're looking at the mitigation plan right now, and the original order asked for the plantings that you see, and the area that's shaded is what was just cleaned up.
Yeah.
And the plants that are in there, if they're not, then if we're back to the order of conditions, then you're saying that those plants and shrubs have to be installed.
No, I wouldn't say that. The reason why I wouldn't say it is because you couldn't tell what was planted in there before. Those plantings were asked to be planted, and then it reverted to its naturally vegetated state. And when it reverted to its naturally vegetated state, multiflora rose grew in, as well as other brambles and things like that. And the homeowner was instructed to remove that, which they did. And they cleaned it. When they cleaned it up, everything was cleaned up.
So I don't know if you just didn't understand this, but after they planted this revegetation plan, they were supposed to monitor for invasives and ensure that those things that were removed never took a foothold in this area.
Is that in the original order of conditions?
It is.
I don't recall that to be part of the original order of conditions for monitoring and for invasives. I remember some plantings that were requested, but I don't remember monitoring for invasives. But I do recall the original order of conditions saying that after the planting, that area should be left alone and remain to go to its naturally vegetated state.
Martha, go ahead. I'm looking up the order of conditions right now. But Martha, I think I saw your hand up.
I also went out and looked at it, and it was clear that all the multiflora rose was gone. And I guess my question is, what is the homeowner allowed to do to keep the multiflora rose from coming back? I'm thinking of something like plant lawn seed and mow that area, or plant wildflower mix and then try to pull multiflora rose if it starts growing back. Something along those lines. I think the problem before was the homeowner was told that they couldn't do anything, and that's where the multiflora came in. So I think it's important to be clear to the homeowner what the expectation is and what they're allowed to do to keep it from coming back if there's any seeds or roots left that might start growing again in a year or so.
Yeah, and we're, if I'm okay to speak now, we're okay to maintain that area and keep it cleared. We had always understood that, you know, we had to leave certain areas alone. And so that's why, and part of that too is that where the invasives had come in was at 22 Small Lane. I'm at 18 Small Lane. That was my father-in-law who passed away. And so that property had kind of been, you know, we tried to help out and keep it clear as best as possible. But, you know, he really wanted to keep the front of his yard clear. And so I think that was part of the order of conditions, was that front part that he was able to keep clear. And then what we did after walking the site with Chuck and Martha was to identify, basically go all the way around the house and clean out all the invasives there. So now that that area is defined, it's easy enough for us to maintain that and keep it cut down and keep the invasives back, now that we have a better understanding of, you know, how to maintain that area and what exactly we were looking for. So, or what was looked for in this. Whether it's cutting it by hand or with a mower or whatever it is, it's, you know, it's cut down enough now. I think it's easy, will be easy to maintain as long as it's part of the regular maintenance on the yard.
I would just add that regular maintenance, you know, half a dozen times a year would probably do significantly help that and prevent it from spreading. So before it could fruit and, you know, drop anything. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and as I said, we're, now that it's kind of a clearly defined area, it should be a lot easier for us to stay on top of it and keep it cut back as to what you're looking for.
Would it be appropriate at this point to suggest possibly like that wetland wildflower seed mix, like was used up on Gray Coach Lane in that area that was just cleared off? It's something to revegetate that area.
Anika, did you have something?
No, I concur with what Dave's saying. It might be good to place some sort of seed cover to at least increase the chances that you're going to get some sort of native habitat friendly species volunteering there. I think that's a good idea.
Martha, I guess, and sorry, I was on mute and I was trying to ask you a question. I missed the end of what you had said there because I was looking at the orders, but did you have what was your takeaway associated with what could potentially go back there, or how much was even needed if something to help that grow in?
Either lawn seed or wildflower seed, something, so
Okay.
that it's not gonna just come back up in or rose. Now, if you put in wildflower seed, does that mean you can't mow it, or can you just mow it a few times a year? If it's a few times a year, I think wildflower seed sounds like a good plan. If you don't mow it at all, I think the multiflora rose will probably beat out the wildflowers in a couple of years.
I mean, I think as far as regular maintenance, if we put lawn seed down and, it's part of the lawn, so it would be easier to maintain versus if it's the flowers, I think it'd be a little bit harder to mow through that. But, I mean, Martha, you were on site, so you kind of saw that it was an extension of the yard there. So I think it'd be easy enough to, rake it up and put grass seed in there and, keep it with the weekly mowing to maintain that. But
So am I missing something here though, guys? I mean, my take was that this is not meant to be yard. We wanted a natural, want to have a natural buffer between this, not necessarily a yard area, correct?
So then that would be wildflower seed, not lawn seed.
Yeah.
But then could that wildflower seed area be weed whacked once a year or something to keep the multiflora rose from coming back?
you do that.
And looking at the old order of condition, at least for 18, the first additional condition was the agreement for 3 feet of mowing around the existing chain link fence. But other than that, no mowing of the herbaceous plants outside of that. So I don't know if we need, I don't know if we need to get as aggressive as putting in shrubs or so. I still think throwing down a nice bunch of wetland seed mix could be extremely beneficial to reestablishing. But I'd like to hear from Carl about that.
Well, in my wildflower experience, your best bet is to sort of oversee the area or something. I mean, just simply putting seed down and letting them fence themselves. I mean, the lawn area in the multiflora will probably just overtake that. We've used, we do use a lot of organics and vinegar and salt mix that could maybe just treat the area once and then try to get this to grow. It's a little bit more of a task, but I think there has to be some sort of site prep to make that work. So, is that what, I mean, you know, so, I mean, if there's enough sun, I mean, I just was able to do sort of a drive-by. I didn't get to go get in the mud, but I mean, I think it could be a good spot to try it. I just think there has to be some site prep in there to get it to go. But in my experience, I don't know what you guys have, what your luck has been in the past, but I mean, and then an annual mowing would be a good idea, you know, once it's sort of November, mow it. You know, they'll come back, and that would be a good way to try to control the other invasives from catching on. But
Chuck, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think my only thought is that the original order of conditions, I mean, you pulled it up and it said monitor for, you know, multifloral rows and all that, and Dave wanted to see that part, and it was right there. And that hadn't happened, and this stuff grew in. And it sounds like it's, you know, from what I'm hearing, and it's been mowed over, so it's going to come back. And the whole point of this whole operation was not to, you know, to establish, there was lawn established. The commission back in the day said, you can't do that. You have to mitigate for that damage. And this is the mitigation plan. And what I'm hearing is some of the commission is okay with having it mowed. So I'm not sure, we don't have a violation notice. We're just trying to close out an existing order of conditions. That means this gentleman needs to meet those conditions. We can't modify them. You know, that's how I see it. And the only point that's come up is, you know, it is up to the commission whether there's enough plant material that's grown in to not have to replant this area.
That's kind of hard, difficult at this point to know because none of us know what was there 10 years ago. None of us
Well,
saw
we have
that
plans,
this
Dave.
was there 10 years ago. And then we don't know what was planted, what wasn't planted, what you know lasted for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and then what was overtaken by the multifloral rows. That's at this point it's unfortunate that the certificate of compliance wasn't applied for back then, but you know certainly there's a the area that's around, and I'm not sure what under the order of conditions, Mike, which house you were talking about, when you brought up the order of conditions, because there's two different houses there. One is the Cape style house and one's a ranch style house. And we're now talking about mitigation of multifloral rows around the ranch style house, not the Cape style house. So I think we need to be clear about what we're talking about, which order of conditions we're talking about, what plantings we're talking about, and what we really want to see out there.
Dave, I think it's the same on both. And if
What's the
Mike
same on
can
both?
pull them both up, it's, and the order of conditions speaks for itself. If it was followed, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Right.
It was complete. Monitor, plant, stay out.
Yeah, Dave, the same language is in, so what I had up at that time was 18. The same language is in 22. The continued
doesn't it
cutting
go on-
and herbicide application to eradicate the invasive multifloral rose bushes east of the house.
Okay. One of the questions I have specifically about that, when does that end?
Well, Dave, you just said that it was not in there.
No, I did absolutely did not say that. I didn't
Okay.
say that. What I said is that there was part of that order of conditions that it said to let the area remain in its naturally vegetated state. So if they went in and they planted that, and then they stayed out of there, that's what it means to me. You don't go in there, you stay out of there.
It doesn't mean that at all. It means, well, so right here in the plan, I had circled it a minute ago, it says that you have to follow the restoration narrative that was provided by Hayes Engineering. I didn't see that. I didn't see that in the documents that I received. That probably got into more detail about, how to maintain this area. Now, I completely agree that native vegetation grows in. Multiflora rose was a problem. It was identified in the first order of conditions. I mean, that should have been known, not to deal with. I think where I'm at would be not to turn it into lawn, but some other alternative that can happen. I don't think a wetland seed mix would be advisable, considering it's not a wetland.
Mhm.
But you could do.
I think we're saying wildflower,
Okay.
right?
Okay. A wildflower seed mix. Yeah, that's okay. I always feel like you're introducing different species because it's such a variety of things. But I mean, that's where I stand. I feel like it shouldn't be lawn unless a new order of conditions is applied for. And I don't think that that's what's happening here. We're only trying to meet this order of conditions so we can get this certificate of compliance issued.
I agree with you, Chuck. I do not think this should be lawn. I think planting the wildflower seed mix, I think is fine out. However, I feel like I'm hearing from everybody that the multiflora rose is just going to come in and take that down, particularly if the plan is to mow that. I mean, I want to make sure we're providing some sort of clear protection or delineation that this area needs to be maintained in the future, and that whether it's managed, it can't turn back into lawn. And I guess Carl, I'll just ask you, is like, if the wildflower seed mix is put in there, is that going to be, if it's done properly, is that going to create a clear delineation if it's still cut once a year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could if the people, if the homeowners are also aware of the situation that 6 foot or 5 foot buffer is, wildflower mix, and you're not dumping compost or putting a shed on it at some point. But yeah, and I think also the management of, if you see a 2 foot tall something sprout up, pull it. But yeah, I think that once that kind of prairie mix of the flower mix establishes, it's pretty tough. It's just getting it to take, and I think there's just, we always talk about we want our plantings and mitigation to succeed, right? That's almost more important than volume and quantity. So I think if it's done the right way, then yes. And then mowing, you don't have to mow it necessarily. It's just was to try to keep the invasives down, right? So by mowing it, you're just taking everything down, but in the same sense, you're not pulling it out of the ground. So monitoring it still is probably just the better bet. If something pops up or is encroaching, to pull it or cut it back,
The reason why I made that suggestion is I just looked at how vigorous it was growing and what kind of a habitat that it created out behind the houses at Great Coach Lane. Because that really grew in thick there. It's, see some of the evergreens that were planted in there. I had to actually look for them because that wildflower seed mixture had grown up so vigorously.
So do we have a protocol or detail of how we install that, or is it just up to the
So one of the other problems, I mean, I think this, you brought this up, and the reason why usually we don't do that is we're reviewing these things after it's been planted. I mean, we have someone else on Border Road that casts seed out there and it hasn't come up. And there's an issue with the certificate of compliance. So I don't think just casting seed is going to get us to a certificate of compliance.
I think that's my concern as well. Is I want to see this take, and I think just where we are in the year and just throwing down it. And I think Carl, I think what you said is probably seems right to me. Is it needs to be done properly, or else it's not gonna make a difference, or it's not gonna take. And I think that's an important piece of this. Is I don't want to. You can't just be taking bags and tossing it and saying, yeah, this is good. We threw down some wildflower mix. I want to see this done properly so that area can take. And I think that's an important piece for the certificate of compliance to show that we've created this delineated area, this buffer zone. So, to answer your question, Carl, no, we don't have a detail. We haven't had it, and I think this has become an issue elsewhere where we've said, oh, put wildflower mix there. Well, how do we know that it's actually going to,
Well, I think
done
I've just done a couple of, we've installed some meadow type areas, and I don't know what the commission's luck has been over the past decade on how, Dave's saying that one site seems to be doing really well. So was that done with some prep, or was that just sort of tossed down and it worked? I guess I don't want to have to over engineer the process, but
I don't know what prep was done, but I know that the majority of the ground cover that was there prior to them seeding it was mulch. It was.
Oh, so that's, yeah.
It was
So
the
it wasn't
ground up
yeah.
trees that were in the area.
Which is already a better starting point than an established lawn. So
Yeah.
But to be more accurate, we did ask them to remove the mulch,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't really mulch. It was ground up. So that was a 3-year process for 3 homeowners that hired landscapers to look at it, and 2 of those properties treated it for invasive 2 years in a row. We saw it on the second go round of the invasive. If you remember that discussion, it does look nice. That's likely to grow in if they don't take care of it. But those trees that are back there are established enough that they probably have a fighting chance to survive.
No doubt.
So this, we're back to how do we meet the conditions in the order of conditions and kind of move this forward based on, what's there. It's clear that can't be turned into lawn in the order of conditions. It needs to be natural vegetation, and to cast seed would work, but you'd have to come back and talk to us after that germinates, sprouts.
yeah. So could that be within the order or the certificate, or we can't issue then, right, with that stipulation, or can we? Or
Well, I think there's an issue about what's, if it would remain a natural area, if it would turn into lawn. There was talk about mowing it as a way of managing the invasives, and that clearly wouldn't work. It's tough figuring out these things for the applicant. It's better to be in the review position, and that's where we find ourselves a lot of the time. And I'm not saying we should design anybody's project, but I think we definitely brought up all the shortcomings of what's out there. No matter what I heard tonight is that something has to happen to this area. And no one said that it's fine.
Yeah, I guess, Mr. Hughes, do you have any sort of idea of a plan of how you could establish something there that is, not helps prevent the multichlor roads, but is leaves a natural zone of vegetation, so a natural buffer there and not your yard?
Yeah, no, I think I would work with the landscaping company that that took out the invasives. I think they're skilled at this, and I would work with them to, get the right mix put in to make sure that the soil is opened up, and we're not just throwing it down on the ground. I want to make sure if we're going to invest in the seed, and these guys know how to do that. They establish lawns and landscape and that type of thing. So I would work with them to replant and establish that area, and keep that, now that we know kind of what to maintain, so we can keep a lookout for the invasives as they come through there, and keep them cut back by hand, and allow the wildlife, the wildflower mix to really grow in that area. I mean, it's clearly defined now because the invasives were there, so it's easy enough for him to just follow what was there, what they took out, and then put the appropriate plantings in there, and then for us to be able to maintain that. And that's the other thing, is that yard at 22 where the invasives were so prevalent, we're having that same landscape company maintain the lawn, and then they would, it's easy now that they've done all that work, and they would do the plantings to be able to mow the lawn, not go over into the other area, but just make sure the invasives are cut back with us, and to grow the wildlife seeds in. I guess and we have no issue doing that. My only concern is just, we're trying to get this closed out, and I know that's a tough position, as you guys have talked about, of making sure that what we're trying to do takes and that type of thing. But it just, I just want to kind of get it closed out and not have to, wait another year or whatever. I mean, we've got, I just would like to get some closure to it. So I don't know if there's a way to close it with the condition of those plantings going in. And I'm just not sure how that's done, but I would like to not have this extend on to a long period of time. So I throw it back to you. I'm not sure what the answer is.
Chuck, you're muted.
My suggestion would to stay away from seed and have that landscaping company just sketch out a planting plan, and we could approve it if it's acceptable to the commission. And you could either, put up a bond or something to make sure that that's happened, but you could get your certificate of compliance that way if the plants went in.
Yeah, I think that's what we've done in the past. Is what we've done is had someone carry the bond. We've let it issued the order. Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong. Issued the closure certificate of compliance, but kept the bond until we saw that was established, and that would allow that if it did fail, at least we know that we've got protection, that if work needed to be done, we've got something to make sure that it could be prepared.
Mike, can you check quickly if that's a requirement? And it's usually the last paragraph in the order of conditions.
Yeah.
I had a quick question, because Carl, you had mentioned about a wildflower. I thought you were saying a seed mix to almost like aerate the area and then plant it, but I guess I'm not sure what you mean, Chuck, by a planting plan. What if they're
So we would like to. So most of the
There's no bond. There's no bond.
So a planting plan gives the commission something to hold you to, where you've presented them with a plan that's been approved, and they would be able to come back and say, well, this is what we expected, and we're going to compare the final results to the plan. But it's also something that we can look at, now and agree to. And then when it comes in, if it doesn't come in, then that's where the bond takes place, and the commission would have the right to go in there and use that money to establish that planting plan as it was laid out. So that's why it's important when we get into this area to have something written in stone, or at least a plan, and we all agree to.
Yeah, Eric, and just to provide some definition there, like, you know, even if you got this closed and we said, okay, this, what you've planted there is acceptable to us, what we don't want to happen is, so a bond's put up and this gets established, and you come before the commission and say, oh, I want that bond, you know, I want to close that out, and, you know, we've all disappeared or forgot about it, and there's a brand new commission, and they say, well, we're looking at the order of conditions, and there's, you know, this is what essentially what we're doing here today, right, is this is what the planting plan said.
Right.
We don't know what was established, what wasn't established, when did it go away, and it starts all over again.
Right.
So I think it's a good idea to have that, you know, this is where we're going to put this seating. This is where we're going to put the, you know, this is what's going to be established. We can approve that, create that bond, and then put in the certificate of compliance, the certificate of compliance.
Chuck, are you also recommending just shrubs and trees or something of the kind versus seeds, a wildflower seed, because it's just more something we can see go in the ground, not have to wait for it to work or germinate or take place, or right? Is that, I think, also what you're asking, Eric? Is that
Right.
right? So,
You know, I think we've told others in town that seed does not, we can't close out anything with seed unless they wait until it grows in.
right. So in other words, that could take 2 years for that to work, and we don't, you know, so shrubs and trees are just something that could go in next
Yeah,
month.
so I was just thinking out of the box and just saying to us to move forward,
Yeah.
instead of seeding, to actually put some plants out there that was acceptable and have a plan that, which could incorporate seed too, but the shrubs and whatnot, whatever the plan has in it, so we would have something.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Chuck, and I think that you're right. That's what we've done in the past, is because those shrubs, or even if it's just something small, that whatever you're planting, it just takes that much easier, takes that much quicker. It doesn't take that extra time to establish. So, okay.
I have one more question, Chuck. Can I ask you a question about this, though? So, disturbing the earth can sometimes be more problematic, and right, spreading these invasives, right, etc. Would we ever recommend, like an organic herbicide, to clean up the area and then just plant in that? Or is it just cut the lawn out, turn it over with a groundhog and plant? I mean, you know, what's the process there? Well, what do we recommend for that?
I think no one's asked to use organic herbicides before, but it would be up to the commission whether they felt that. I mean, we're pretty close to the wetland area here, but organic fertilizers. What'd you say? Vinegar and salt.
Yeah.
So
It's not as you know, it's a couple times of a process, right? It's not just put it down. I'm just asking if there's more benefit for us being so close that, you know, you rip up the hundreds of square feet, turn it over, and then it pours, and all that loose soil just goes back everywhere anyway. Is there any benefit, I guess I'm wondering, for the future to apply that or not? But just a thought, I guess.
yeah, I would say yes, but I think we're awfully close here. This is a flat area. You know, if they're going to turn up the soil at this point, they probably should have just pulled out the multiflora rows that way in the first place.
Right. I was going to say, because if you just did that, removed 6 inches, you'd be starting off on the better foot anyway with new organics anyway. So
I think
okay.
we're going to just, you know, cast some seed out there. Maybe, I don't know, whatever the recommendation of the landscaper is that comes back to us, and find some areas for some shrubs if they want to move forward. If not, then this is definitely something we'll be looking at in the spring.
Okay, so is the next step, Mike, so we're going to continue till we see a planting plan? Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's the process. Mr. Hughes, if there's questions that come up as you're doing this, certainly, this is I'm glad you were able to come in and talk to the commission. We were able to get everybody's opinion here, but I think Chuck has our kind of our direction of where we're looking to go. So you feel free to reach out outside of the meetings of, does this seem right? Am I headed in the right direction? And how do we move this so that the next step for you is you've got something approved, you got something that's planted in, and we can, get a bunch together and issue that certificate, the certificate of compliance.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, we need to come back with a planting plan and submit that, and then show the plantings in that area, and then we can get the sign off at that point. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
I think, so so the committee, the only thing that you're missing is the commission would discuss and approve, and if that seems right, and if it seems to, all native, and I think you realize that we're looking for all native, plus the monitoring, plus some sort of bond or I don't know, something, I can't think of the other names or whatever we call those things, but bond is definitely what we're talking about. We just have that on the property and that will be returned.
Is that the same thing though, if we're planting shrubs and stuff versus more of an unknown when we talked about the seed mix initially?
So the seed mix, you would have to wait until it comes up, and it comes up in, a robust manner. And so there's no possibility to move forward until we see that's happened, and you would have to monitor for invasives. But if you planted, then you could move forward if you could get the plants in this year with a bond, and the commission would review, and if they felt that they could manage, they would sign off on the certificate of compliance. So that's the only way to move forward on the certificate of compliance in 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And maybe, Eric, I would just add, I guess, I don't know if, or to me, I guess, for next week or the next meeting, when you're having the discussion, maybe just ask the landscape company if they've just thought about sort of the process of installing, turning over the lawn, removing it, or something, or just because if that comes up next week, it could be, maybe you would understand too on what their process is, right? That might come up at the next meeting.
Right. I know they did try to remove as many of they didn't just cut stuff. I mean, they cut it by hand, but then they were trying to dig out as much as possible. I know it's near impossible when it's all kind of meshed together, but they did. Right. They did have that in mind and tried to, without bringing machinery in there, trying to dig out as much as they could and pull out as much as they could by hand. So,
okay. So, should I make a motion to continue?
Do we need a motion on this?
Sure.
I think this is just this is not it's a item on the agenda, but it's not public hearing. So
okay.
I think we've got a path forward. I think we've heard the agreement in the commission. So, all right. Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Moving right along. The next item on the agenda. 270-0727, 259-267 Main Street, map 12, lots 39 and 40. This is the environmental monitor discussion. This is for the Main Street property with applicants Jay Finnegan, the Stonegate Construction Corporation. So I think most of you here have received as part of the packet multiple quotes for environmental monitor. So just to give a recap, within the order of conditions, there is an order that includes that an environmental monitor will, and I apologize because I don't have the exact language, but I believe it's an independent environmental monitor on behalf of the town will monitor the project, and we received scopes of work from LEC the applicant, in addition, had gone out and solicited 2 additional scope of works and pricing, and my understanding is asking us to consider the other consultants. So LEC is Ann Martin, who was involved in the notice of intent process and helped develop the order of conditions. So with that, Joe, I know you're here. Is there anybody else with you that's intended for this?
I think Josh Latham, I just unmuted him.
Josh. Okay. Hey, Josh.
Joe, if there's anyone else.
Good evening. Alex Cates is here as well.
Alex.
Good evening.
So what's the word, Joe?
Mr. Chairman, we just, when we received the estimate for Ann Martin service at $48,000, it seemed very high. Like really couldn't understand, knowing the scope, understanding the scope, why it was that high. It just kind of shocked us. So just understanding that we have incurred a lot of expenses on this project with redesign and a lot of the mitigation. We're just looking for an opportunity to open dialogue on the cost, and we reached out to a couple other wetland scientists just to get quotes or estimates for the same scope. So we have one from Williams and Sparagus, which is Greg Hockmuth, that is $32,000, and one from Damon Burt from Fraggle Rock Environmental, which was $18,000. Chuck reached out and said, can we get a further breakdown of that with regards to man hours and rates? And we had sent that over earlier today. And I think at the end of the day, we understand that Ann's done a lot of work here. Ann's got the institutional knowledge of the project, worked very hard with us and with Chuck and with DEP to come up with ultimately what was an approvable plan. But at the end of the day, we have to supply a wetland scientist for the project to actually oversee the work of the restoration and the replication and the stream work, and at the end of the day, certify that all that work is done. We have to provide as-built. I have to provide engineering as-built. So we're going to have a lot of professionals on the project, and your commission is looking for an environmental monitor to obviously not oversee that work, not dictate or instruct the work to be done, but just to monitor it for the commission on a weekly basis. So although Ann is, there's no question she has the credentials. She is a very senior person, has been in the business for many years, and beyond reproach with regards to her credentials. The question is, do we need somebody of her caliber and her rate, or can this be done by other sufficiently credentialed people with lower rates, I guess. So we're just looking for fairness and to open dialogue. At the end of the day, we understand that this is the commission's decision, and we will respect whatever decision is made by the commission.
Okay. So I guess I'll start. and Joe, I think you've said a lot of what I was going to say. Is my take is, Anne has a lot of the institutional knowledge. She's got a lot of the background. I would like to see what we can do to make her part of this project, make her part of the representative for this commission, because I think, just my understanding and the feedback that I've gotten about how the order of conditions was handled on for us was a very difficult project. I think showed her why the expertise was necessary, the value that she adds for us. I think about, how we all got here and why Anne was brought on, and remember that, we as a commission, approved the concept of this project that ultimately DEP came back and said, no, what are you guys thinking? And so Anne had the expertise to kind of to narrate this along and bring it along this path. And so, whatever, from my comfort level, while understanding your concern, particularly when there's a difference that we saw as far as these quotes have gone, my all things, price be gone, I think Anne is the right person for the job. I do respect that you ended up sending us essentially the other quotes, and so seeing that gap, I want to make sure we understand how it got to that, why it's so separated. What I also want to be careful of is, I think in general, when we've had a similar role like this in the past, there has been onus, resources and time and commitment that the town has had to put in to manage the environmental monitor. As far as I've been as long as I've been on the commission, we've never had necessarily an independent, one that is essentially working on behalf of the commission. We've always had it worded that the applicant was required to have this environmental monitor hired, and they had to send the reports to the commission. And ultimately, I think what we've struggled with is getting the reports that are more than just to check the boxes, an effort for, having to reach out and make sure we're getting that. And I don't want the fact that we are choosing something less reflect upon the fact that the town has to put more resources to managing this and extra work to managing this, because at the end of the day, that's the price is the same if that's the case. And so that's what I want to be cautious of.
I don't think that the other persons, Mr. Burt and Mr. Hockmuth are lesser necessarily. In the case of Williamson Sparagus and Greg Hockmuth, he's the environmental monitor on a project we're doing in North Andover, and he utilizes staff for routine weekly inspections, where the concern is erosion control and is the site clean, are things happening, and then when there's something happening, such as restoration, active replication areas, or in this instance, the stream bank stabilization, he would be there. And what we would look for in fairness is just a realization that can be the case, that the major components of this project that are of complexity and concern to both us and the commission are the replication, the restoration, probably the boardwalk installation, and the stream bank stabilization. But your order of conditions requires that every single week this monitor goes out there, and in addition, anytime it rains more than a half an inch. And we at Hancock also employ or are contracted to do this type of thing. And those weekly, when there's not much going on the site, those weekly inspections we also utilize staff engineers and staff wetland scientists to do. So I don't know if Ann has that at her, in the Stoneham office, has the ability to utilize that staff, or if that's something that the commission is even willing to entertain, or are you of the mindset that no, Ann's got to be out there, be the one that's out there and out there every week? And I think just looking at the price and the 12-month limitation, trying to back into a total number of hours, it certainly looks to me like Ann priced this based on her and her rate, being out there for all the inspections.
Yeah. And you may be right, Joe. And in fairness to Ann, I don't know that I don't know that this commission gave good enough guidance when we said, okay, we need an environmental monitor. Can you price this out? To say it didn't have to be her to do that. I mean, my impression of what you just described from roles, Chuck or others in the commission, I mean, that's somewhat similar to what I envision. I would expect that someone senior is there for those important things like the replication. But that weekly inspection, yeah, I think that is someone that's doing that under the guidance of Ann is certainly someone is something that's acceptable, or any other firm. And in fairness to Ann, I don't know that we gave her the opportunity to break that down. We did, and again, this all kind of happened yesterday when I looked at this, was ask for that same breakdown that we asked from the two that you solicited, to try to understand, what is that breakdown, and are there ways that we can get this together? Because I think from an initial email I saw from Ann was that she had a rough go at it and said, oh, look, here's an approximate number, and this is time and materials, and
Yeah.
the don't put in a number that's too low, because everybody's going to be yelling at you when I ask for more. So I want to be cautious of the fact that I want to be able to give her the same opportunity to provide that clarity of if that's our expectations, then and that's what we're assuming on this time and materials, is this number that we've seen different. And I think you're right. I'm sure the other consultants are qualified, but they don't have the background that on this job specifically that Ann has. And I think there is a piece that requires catching up if that's the case. And I know that we've heard nothing but great things about how that process went so far. So I'm hesitant to just say, well, it was too high. Let's just move on. One of these other ones are qualified and should be acceptable. So, Chuck,
So
I could see you were looking to add.
No, and you were, I like what you said. I like how you mentioned, like, Ann would jump off knowing, where we're headed. But what I wanted to bring up is this, she did slip in her estimate as standard fee schedule, and I would suspect the weekly monitoring would be from the wetland environmental specialist, and that's a range of $50 to $75. They are a lot closer. They're in Wakefield, I believe, and with the time and material, and with a slate of employees that they could bring in, if she calculated it out under her fee, then it's going to come in a whole lot lower. I did have a email conversation with her, and she did say that she understood that the applicant will have his environmental specialist out there, and that's how it should be. And if things are done as per the order of conditions, the bills will not range up into, that estimate that she had. So less time. So those are three things that I wanted to bring up. They are very close to this area, They understand the project. They need to, I don't expect to see Ian out here for the weekly monitoring. And they have a slate of prices and employees to make this happen. It was a tough project, but it would be a shame to walk into this thing and have it somehow not come out in a way that didn't meet our expectations after going through that, very cumbersome permitting process.
Nor would we. I mean, I think one thing that I can attest to is that this developer, Mr. Cates and Mr. Finnegan, build a high quality product, but they also run a clean site, and they follow the rules, and they understand that not following the rules just get them in trouble and slow things down and cost them money. So they've been doing this for a very long time. So yeah, they're going to keep a clean site, and they're going to keep moving towards it. So we're just looking for fairness. I think if the clarification is there that the commission understands the use of a variety of staff for different things, and is open to potentially, if we get loads and loads of snow, and all site work is shut down for a period of time, then those site walks should be quick, or maybe not even happen during those times. Then yeah, we see the cost being controlled, because the scope is limited, and that's really what kind of threw us. And when we came up with the hour, or when the other consultants came up with the hours, they were in the 200-hour range. And that's exactly what I had thought, that, this for weekly inspections, few hours each week, and the half-inch rain inspections and the other tasks that are in there, that we were somewhere around 200 hours. And that's why the 48 just didn't seem to ring true. But understand that it's going to be hourly, time and materials. We're going to have an opportunity to review the invoices, and as long as everyone's on the same page and we're treated fair, I think that it can work.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, but I won't bring it up just because I'm probably going to end up being busy. But when you guys shut down because of snow, get a request into us to stop the monitoring until you start up again.
Yep.
Okay. So, I guess, am I hearing that, it sounds like, as long as we can get some additional clarification from Ann that, of what the breakdown and assumption was, maybe this is possibly something that we can still move forward with and still get her engaged. And, I know, like I said, we just had, this was just sent out yesterday of like, hey, can we get a breakdown? So, I think I'd like to, before any decision to make a change, it occurs, I'd like to make sure we see that, because, like I said, I'm at least of the opinion that, if we can make her work, I want her to be the one. I guess I would open up to the commission. I know I've said a lot. Does anybody else on the commission have a thought? They all agree, I guess.
So I think that the applicant, and from what I'm hearing in town hall, is eager to move forward. We're some language with the bond, went upstairs again, second time today. It's gone to town council. That shouldn't be an issue. So I don't think that we need to wait till another meeting, but we can, like I said, I'm reading her rate sheet. She has different people, it seems, that you wouldn't send out your senior person. everyone would call you out on that just to check erosion control. So I don't think that's an issue at all.
I mean, with that said, is there any possibility we could reduce the initial payment to say 12,000? Obviously, we're going to be out of compliance if we don't refund that or continue to fund that as needed. But we're looking at expenses and trying to control the startup expenses and so forth. So, and then we are desirous of starting immediately. That would help.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to having that initial account number be the initial deposit into the account being 12,000. Chuck, what's?
So with the understanding that Ann also agrees,
Sure.
because this is a contract with another company.
Agreed. Agreed. I'm not opposed as the commission of, talking to her about having that number. I would still like that to be, I think her wording in there was, once it gets down to $2,000, that it's, essentially, added.
Yeah.
I'm
but
not sure of the process, but is funding more available once the project started?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
They're trying to get it. They're trying to get an advance permission from the current owner to do a little bit of work, in advance. So no, they haven't secured the construction financing and so forth. So yeah, that's why they're looking to kind of control the cost at this moment.
Yeah, I guess, from my standpoint, Chuck, understanding that has to be something we talk about with LEC. I think that's not unreasonable to start. We'll get an idea of the burn rate and we can address it from there.
Great.
No, and again, we're going to start with the initial site work that's out by the street. Would like to get the foundation in. So the restoration and the replication are not going to happen this fall, but we do want to get a jump ahead of the winter and try to get the foundation in. So that's our goal. So I think the item of the most concern would be the wetland impact, the 207 square feet of impact, and the installation of that retaining wall that creates that impact. That'll be the only thing that needs to be monitored, maybe from Ann. The rest will really just be erosion control until we get into the hard freeze, and then the goal is to just keep the vertical construction going until spring, when we can get into the site work, and then we'll be doing the restoration, replication, stream work, boardwalk, those type of things.
Sure.
So I think the bottom line is I think the burn rate will be lower in the beginning. And next spring, it's really going to crank up.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Joe, just one more question about your team getting started. Are you within contact with Julie about the DRT meeting, which would be required before you start? It's a design review team, brings in all the offices.
We had that.
And you've had that already?
Yeah.
Chuck, I think you're talking about the pre-construction.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that'll just be a separate meeting. The DRT was what we had done pre-CPDC.
Okay. So just make sure, because I'm sure that they're going to want that to happen prior to starting also.
No, we had the pre-construction meeting with Julie and engineering and the other staff members. It was a
Did I
Zoom
miss it?
meeting. I think you missed the invite. I don't know. From our standpoint, all that's between now
There
and
you go. That's why I brought it up.
between us, we believe all that's between us and breaking ground is pre-con with you and Ann, I guess. So that's would like to set erosion control and then have that meeting.
Right.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Yeah, we were looking for that bond money. I'll send out an email to Ann tonight or tomorrow morning, and the bond money, and then that should do it. Set the meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks,
Josh.
guys.
Thank you.
Okay. That's the minutes from the last meeting. Moving right along. Tree policy discussion. Okay. I'm gonna share screens here. Let me find this thing. So, Chuck, while I'm bringing this up, can you explain, as the refresher, we sent DPW our comments on the tree policy. This then went to town council.
I think it was reviewed by the DPW again, and then it went to town council, and town council reviewed it, talked to Matt Cronellis, who contacted me and asked me some additional questions about wetlands and the 20-foot, 200-foot and the 100-foot, and what does it mean when we say town-owned conservation land. And I answered all those questions, and this is what this is the result of all that. But the DPW and the Conservation Office or the Conservation Commission did not get back together again and discuss our changes together.
I'm sorry, I'm muted. Sorry. So what I was saying was, I'll be honest, I went through, I saw a lot of changes, but I didn't see anything contextually that changed. I mean, I guess maybe I'm missing here. Did you see anything in this that like stood out to you? Apologize, I've got a crying baby taking a shower in the background.
Don't have any cold water in your house? Hot water in your house, Mike?
Yeah, apparently we don't put warm
hot
water
water?
for the toddlers. I say baby. He's 3.5.
Mike, can you put the unedited version up, and can we go through each section and just look at it? And if anyone has any comments, that would probably be the best way to do this. I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to look at this, but that, again, this is going to be something that the commission's going to approve for many other commissions down the line. Can that be any bigger?
This is the unedited version. Oh, sorry. I know what's happening. All right, now can you see it?
Make it a little larger.
All right, did that work?
I did. You move it up?
Alright. Chuck, can you explain this to me a little bit? This is essentially these are the road trees?
Yeah, so chapter 87 gives authority to the town tree warden, the responsibility to monitor those trees and without the need to get approval, remove trees that he deems a safety risk that are within the road right of way. Road right of way is it's not arbitrary. There's an actual layout to the road, and some trees that are just outside the road right of way probably could still fall into the road. But I don't think that we're arguing about any tree that could possibly fall into the road. So chapter 87 is the authority that the town tree warden acts under, and it gives him the ability to remove trees for safety reasons on streets. Is that clear, or did you need more? And you're muted again there, Shower Master. Want to move it up to all of number 1? Oh, yeah, okay. So this one's just saying that it's our responsibility to let the town tree warden know if there's a tree in the conservation area that we think he should look at.
And this is the original, right? This is not the marked up one, right?
This is the final version with all the markups accepted.
Can I add something in here, Chuck? Under number 2, there's no timeline in that. Should there be a timeline added to some that verbiage in paragraph 2? Just thinking outside the box.
No, it's good, but I think town council maybe thought that the departments would be able to keep up with some emails.
Yeah.
And really, this is a good suggestion.
I appreciated it that it's by email, because you have the electronic proof that such a communication happened, but it's under what timeline is the communication going back and forth?
Well, it's a future issue.
Yeah.
And non-immediate safety risk.
Yeah.
And it seems like me and Mike were called out to one on Birch Meadow, and I don't think they took the trees down, but Mike was pretty responsive. And he's actually got the input of the DPW department and RMLD about the trees probably within another couple of days.
Okay.
So, you know, I think that we could have added our input at any point during that process, but again, this will probably get easier and easier as time goes on.
Sure.
But in the emergency situations, it's as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think this is pretty close to, I mean, it's certainly understandable.
Yep.
That this would need to be written this way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I keep on putting it on mute. You know, I've just read through the track changes version again to understand where the changes were made. I mean, my take is at this point, it's cleaned up some of the language that we had, maybe that was repeated, but I don't see any changes to the content of what we were looking when we submitted this last time. So.
But could you just go down a bit? I didn't finish off the 5 business days. That was, yeah.
Sorry, where?
Just go back to that, yeah, B.
Sorry.
All right, so that just says he's going to give us within 5 days what course of action happened, an email. So that's good too. So number 4.
Yeah.
So this one says that on conservation land with no risk, Mike is making a determination. And this is one of the ones that I wanted to make sure that it becomes hard when Mike's out there. So his only job is trees. So he's out there quickly, and when he tells people that, hey, these trees can come down, for me, it's hard to say, and he doesn't know all of the conservation rules. It's hard for me to kind of backtrack and kind of correct the situation if it isn't something that should happen. So this is the one where we put in before that he can't make a determination. I don't know how that should be said, but
yeah, so looking at the last version, the track changes, I think the only thing that this said here differently was we had this as summary of findings.
The last version of the track changes, is the one I emailed you, is the one that went to the DPW before it went to town council. So
yeah,
ours was 3 ago.
Oh. So we don't know how this has changed relative to what we sent. Okay. You know, I
It's just
think
where it says,
you know, I think you don't have this sentence without this next one, right? Ultimately, what this is saying, Chuck, is still you're the one providing the saying whether it's allowable.
Well, yeah, I do understand that, but it's not been the practice, even as recently as when I went to Track Road, and there were a couple of trees there. The people had talked to Mike already, and he had already told them that he believes that they should come down.
Got it. Yeah. So a condition like that where
I mean, it says the owner to contact Conservation Commission. I mean, you tell me, or the rest of the commission tell me, would that be the spot to add something without making a determination? The tree warden shall advise the property owner to contact the conservation administrator without publicly stating, I don't know.
And you're just going off of your last experience that didn't happen, right?
No, I'm not going off of just one experience where that's happened.
Yeah, I think what happens, Carl, and granted I'm not there, but just from my understanding of when the property owner comes in is, he sees that what the conversation probably is, oh yeah, this is probably okay, but you need to reach out to the Conservation Commission or whatever it is, and it's taken as, oh, the tree warden told me it was okay. Or and again, we're not there. He may say, yeah, this is fine, but you need to reach out to the commission. Again, the call that we get says, yeah, we were talking with the tree warden. He said it's fine.
Right.
So can I do this? And then all of a sudden you say, well, no. and I think that's the position that we're put in that can be difficult.
Yeah. Okay.
I do feel like the people in town think we're pretty much co-equal as far as determining tree risk. That may not be the reality of it, but I think that that's the perception. And I'm going to say from my experience, it would be nice to have this document and say, look, first off, there's a lot in the Wetlands Protection Act and the town wetlands bylaws that we need to, take into consideration about these trees.
Right.
And so any kind of, blurb in there would allow town council to understand, and maybe they could rewrite it. So.
So what's the suggestion, Chuck? I guess, is there a suggested edit?
Right, because it does say that if the conservation administrator allows the removal of the limbs or tree in question, the removal shall be performed. So it seems clear, at least on paper, that they have to have approval by both, right? But of course, you're saying that doesn't always happen. So.
I think the thing is, it's approval from the conservation. Right. We can ask Mike to provide his opinion in this field because he's a professional and he knows what he's doing out there. But ultimately, if there's something in conservation jurisdictional area that's not a shade tree, that's under the conservation's. That's something that only the Conservation Commission should be deciding, not both.
Can I make
Okay.
And we're, Go ahead, Martha.
Okay. On the fourth line down where it says shall advise the property owner to contact conservation administrator. Put a clause in there that says to determine whether town and state regulations apply to this situation, something like that.
Right, so then you can always fall back on that, Martha, that, right, that there's actual regulations and look it up. And maybe the word advise is not the right word then. Maybe it's too nice of a word. Advise makes it sound kind of wishy-washy.
Town and state regulations.
Does that help kind of reinforce it, Chuck, that, look, ultimately, it's us that are determining what's appropriate to be done, and you know, this is how we do it. But that just the extra
that's
language
fine.
kind of says this is how we're getting done. Okay, 5 and 6.
I'm having trouble picturing what direction the town tree warden is removing the tree back to the property line.
They don't go onto private property.
Okay. But it's a privately owned tree that fell into the conservation area. Why is the tree warden doing anything on the town side before contacting the conservation administrator?
We lost Chuck. Chuck, I think this is, well, I mean, tell me, but I think this is something that's been agreed upon with Mike and Chuck, that this is become like the normal operating procedures. If the, right, or do you have any, like, do you have issues with this one, Chuck? 6?
You know, the problem is when you think about them, you could find an issue to talk about.
Yeah.
And again, there's gonna be kind of a, I don't know, what's it called? Like honeymoon period. There's gonna be an area where you gotta understand, Mike's gotta understand, like, if this fell in a, off someone's property onto a dry land, I don't actually even know why he would remove it. From what I've heard from Mike is if it's in the woods, I mean, like Martha said, why would he do it? But this says, look, it falls off of somebody's property and some part of it's on conservation land. He's going to remove that portion or leave it. It's just up to him. But I think that what it might need is, no, it's actually in there. So just a summary of its actions. It just gives me an opportunity to, to say, hey, that's blocking a stream, or that's that's blocking a path or a trail. There is a section in here where at least we talked about this, that the Trails Committee has been the committee to go to kind of like cut the trail and make it free of fallen trees. So
I'm just wondering whether in section 6, the last line after course of action at the property, whether it should say something like before taking that action. You know, it sounds like he's going to cut the tree back first and then contact you to let you know what he's planning to do. And I think he should contact you first and then cut the tree back to the property.
Yeah, this doesn't say that it's a risk. It's just a situation.
Yeah, and well, I think it's fair to include that. We can see if Chuck thinks we even need it. But Martha, just to give you an idea, part of what I've learned as we go along, as we've gotten through this is, you know, one of the things that I think I had probably the wrong impression on is even with trees that are at risk, none of this happens like in a stream of consciousness, right? It's they identify it, it goes on a list, and it might not happen for another 2 months, if that. And so this is when this is worded, you know, I think I've always just thought of like, oh, you know, particularly the risk section. Oh, they found a tree that's at risk. They called someone out and the guy took it down right away. That's not even the case. It could still take a week or so or longer for someone to get out there and actually do that work. So none of this is done necessarily like just, oh, call them up, we're going to take this down now. They don't have the capacity to function that way.
Yeah, I missed a little bit, but I agree that this doesn't pose a risk, and I don't want to gum up the works.
Yeah, by changing
just
too
kind
much
of reading
when you've
through
got
it,
the
it
final
almost seems
version.
like prior to removal makes sense, but you know, it would seem like if a tree fell down on a private property, how would Mike even know about it? It doesn't sound like it's on the street. It sounds like it's in the backyard or something. So the guy or the property owner would call him, and then that would be an opportunity to contact me.
Yeah, isn't the example here, Chuck, the Lob's Pond, the house next to Lob's Pond, wasn't that they lost a tree, it fell on, and they called Mike and said, what can you do about it? And he said, well, I don't do anything that's on your property, or right? Isn't that kind of the
That was a conservation tree that fell from conservation land into private property.
Got it.
So Mike actually cut the tree that was on that private property, but left the tree that was on the conservation land.
Yeah, he cut it back to the property line.
Severely damaged.
That was this example.
Maybe two.
Okay.
That was severely damaged. That's probably going to fall down pretty soon.
Okay.
Can I just comment? Can I just comment? You know, if a private tree falls, isn't it the private property owner's responsibility to take care of that tree?
I asked Jane Kinsella, the director of the DPW, that very question, and she says that that's not how they operate, and they're also, she said that they're consistent with other towns with that.
I thought it was a state law. I thought it was. I think I looked it up.
You're free to
So
call
Redding-
Jane, but I asked her. And again, I'm asking because it seems like Redding goes out of their way to accommodate these trees, and I was saying, geez, you know, this is, you know, if the tree from a conservation area falls into private property, I know, maybe it'd be better if Anika, you explain this. What happens then? Whose responsibility is it at that point?
Give me the example again.
When a tree from the conservation area falls into private property, how does the state law handle that?
Well, I think from that standpoint, it is the town's, if it was a town tree that fell on private property, it's the town's responsibility to straighten that out.
Oh, because that's different than what I've heard. So I didn't know. So in my example, someone I know, a tree from a neighbor fell from the neighbor's yard into his own yard, and they cut it at the property line and left the tree in his yard. And of course, he asked him what's going on, and they said, "Look, you're responsible for what's on your side. Act of God."
Sometimes. Sometimes because
And
of the
so
insurance policy.
that's how it's been. And I never got a chance to call up my insurance agent and ask them that same question. But anyways, that was the reason behind my question to Jane, and she assured me that they're consistent with other towns and that's how they operate. So how this is written is how the town operates their trees. So maybe that's that's just a side conversation we don't need to have.
Yeah, if you don't think there's a risk there, I don't want to belabor that the item.
If they're cutting them down, that's their, it's, I think they're benefiting the town by their policy.
All right, 7 and 8.
I like this because we hadn't been getting notified before, and this would be nice to know that something's out in that area. And this doesn't, this doesn't mean that I couldn't request that something happen in the future to this tree if it posed some sort of situation that no one thought of at the DPW department. It just says that, they're not going to do anything about it, but they're going to let us know. And that's what we didn't find out before. So.
Okay.
Did you go past the town forest?
Sorry.
So they're kind of treating the town forest as like a street tree, the whole town forest. And there's portions in there that are along river and wetland. Well, actually, what was the bottom part?
This doesn't seem like it's applicable here, right? Sorry, I'm scrolling back and forth, but for the benefit of the Trails Committee, See Clicks Fix will keep a record of trees on trails that cannot be removed by DPW. I guess that's, I'm not sure why that's applicable to this sentence, but.
I have a problem with one of the sentences in paragraph 9. It's the one that straddles the 2 pages.
Hold on, 9 or 8?
Town tree,
9.
town forest trees.
Isn't that 8?
Not 8. I think 8 is fine.
Okay. Okay, what is it?
The part, it's a long first sentence, I think, but the part of that first sentence that says, after using the internal comment feature within C-Click Fix. And this is the part I have a problem with. It says, until a course of action has been determined by the tree warden, the conservation administrator, or the Conservation Commission. I think that really leaves it up for grabs. And it used to be and
Right.
or.
I think it's meant to be this, right? The tree warden and the conservation administrator, or the tree warden and the Conservation Commission.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
What about back up on the town forest one, where we have these two sentences at the very bottom? What was that reference in number 2? Oh, that they're just gonna keep a record of it if the town.
That
I
to put
think
on-
that there's situations in the town forest where it's not near a trail. And I guess the tree warden wouldn't be in those areas, or maybe, I don't know. But if it's not near a trail, because he's protecting trails and he's protecting the roadway for the fire roads.
Well,
So I think the only thing that qualifies here are trees. So the trees that are, right, this isn't saying
Okay.
every tree
I mean,
in town
but the thing-
forest.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mike, but can I just comment
Yeah.
that, just a reminder that all of town forest is under our jurisdiction. Isn't it?
No, it's under the town forest committee.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's what it says on what I've seen.
Okay,
And then
okay,
it's the
but-
water department.
okay. But the area like Kirchian Woods, that is our jurisdiction.
Well, any jurisdiction that we have in the town forest is from the Wetlands Protection Act and the town wetlands bylaw, so it's 100 feet and 200 feet. Those areas aren't represented in this town forest statement.
Okay, I guess one thing I want to just sort of comment on here is a little bit of overlapping responsibility. First, there's the responsibility we have to uphold all the jurisdictional performance standards, jurisdictional area performance standards, and the second responsibility is management of conservation land.
We've lumped the definition up here has, well, okay, maybe not if this says conservation. Well, land subject to conservation restriction, right? Isn't that lumping in all that responsibility as well?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
What about land subject to conservation? So is Matera Cabin on a conservation restriction?
Yeah, right. It's conservation land.
But it's not
No,
represented
but I
in one
mean,
of those
but
four
that
options.
conservation restriction is a specific deed vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so conservation
so-
land is land deeded to.
We could say under conservation restriction or owned, managed by the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, because there's that other section of Millet that the select board let us be in charge of. And then we could have like fee interest in different conservation areas like Matera.
Right. I mean, that's what we're saying.
What
Well,
about
land
the
subject to
No.
conservation, how are you capturing? Oh, that might capture it, yeah.
what about the land that's up at Fairbanks Morse?
That is,
That's not under our care and management.
no, but we would capture that under the 100-foot, yeah, well, this is between the Conservation Commission and the DPW, not the land, what's that, the land forgot the name of those people.
Trust.
Yeah, the land trust people.
Reading Open Land Trust.
Reading Open Land Trust. I think
Does that make sense?
you say land under a conservation restriction, because just by the fact that they have managed by Reading Open Land Trust, it's subject to a conservation restriction. Just by virtue of its.
Well, that's covered then. Land
Yeah.
subject to conservation restriction or
Yeah.
land under the care and custody.
Of the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's see.
All right, so Chuck, does that help what we had here in 8?
No, not by adding the care and custody. We have no care and custody in the town forest.
But if
Well,
you go
But
just,
we have jurisdiction within the 200, 100, and 200 foot, but I thought that that eliminated the wording here is the travel user should take whatever step deemed necessary to remedy the situation.
scroll down to just
This-
below the page break, the other half of 8.
Sorry, Martha, what was that?
Scroll down to just below the page break to the other half of 8, please. Right there, it says, if the tree is located within a conservation jurisdictional area, they will.
Yeah, but this is just
Well,
saying,
he's just summarizing the relevant facts, like, yeah, we cut them down and yeah, no, and I read that. I was hoping to be part of the conversation, not to be, informed of it after it happened. These are not, again, these are not trees, unless I'm mistaken. These are not dangerous trees.
no, I thought that's what this is. This is saying that if a tree is located and considered a safety risk to the emergency road system. This section is only addressing trees that are a danger to the emergency road system.
That's not necessarily true, Mike, but
Okay.
Talks below about a trail system. How is
talks about
that?
trails.
Yeah, this is the town trail. You're right.
So
I still think for a lot of this work in town forest, it should be emphasized that even if they're going to do the emergency road tree work, or even if they're going to do trail maintenance work, they still need to notify us according to state law that they're going to do this work
Yeah,
in these
according to
areas,
state,
especially if they're going to bring in heavy equipment, if they have to.
So-
Erosion and,
Mike can't use chapter 87 in the town
No.
forest.
no, he doesn't have
to have a
jurisdiction there.
Tree meeting, yeah, he has to have a tree hearing on those trees. I'm not sure that's how it happens, but I don't see chapter 87 going into the town forest.
No,
So theoretically, if we were having an issue, we should be saying, well, where the hell was the tree hearing? Right? Because that's our opportunity to speak up.
in the red line version, in section 8, the last 3 words are proposed course of action. And the proposed course of action got cut out. And I think that's the key thing. is we're asking for Mike to email the proposed course of action, not email after the fact.
Yeah.
That's in the jurisdictional areas.
Yes.
Tree warden shall summarize the relevant facts and determinations of the proposed course of action to the conservation administrator.
You know,
Yeah.
just because it is a right-of-way that is used for emergency vehicles, it doesn't mean it's an official town tree warden right-of-way.
No, it's not. I mean, we don't. But at the end of the day, if Mike or the tree warden, I mean, if the tree warden said, "Hey, there's a tree that I think is dangerous, and it's right there, and it's going to block the emergency access road. If it fell, 100 times out of 100, we're going to say take it down." Right? I don't see it. Us not saying that.
Yeah.
But I do like that what you added there.
And it's not really, it's put back because it was in the original previous document.
Yeah.
Right. Is that it?
I was going to try to share that, but yeah, I think that's it. Okay. All right. So Chuck, what do we need to do? Vote on
Just send me
approval of
that.
this as amended.
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Was there a second that I didn't hear?
Second, Martha seconds it.
Michael Flynn in favor?
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
David Panett in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Scott Keith in favor.
All right. Thank you.
Right.
All right, next item. So the old new business. So the first two items on the old new business, I was going back to what our last meeting, we actually closed and issued those. So this is 118 Belmont and 36 Whittier. So there's nothing that's required here at this point. We've already voted to issue those. Certificate of compliance, Lynetta Lane. Chuck, is there anything with that at this point?
So my email, I recommended that the commission issue a certificate of compliance. I've been out there. It's a clean job. There was a couple of, there was an area where I guess the foundation drain ended prior to the 25-foot area, and I gave permission to just bring it off that area and further into where the grade started going down towards the wetland. That was the only change in this project, and the trees I saw that were in, and the lawn was established, and it looked it looked as good as others that we've said yes to. As a matter of fact, the homeowners are living there already, and they have started on their own gardening projects.
Okay. Do I hear a motion then?
I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for notice of intent 270-0700 17 Lynetta Lane.
Second,
I have-
Michael Flynn, in favor?
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Before I vote, I have a question. Had they started putting in their gravel before Chuck went out and looked at it?
I didn't hear that.
When I went out to look at it, they've been putting in a gravel path and a sitting area that looks like it kind of goes right along the 35-foot line to me. Did you see that when you went out?
That homeowner asked me about that, and I had given him the okay to put that in, considering the gravel path was gravel and they were planting. I didn't see any, he didn't ask me about any structures out there. So if there was concrete or something beyond planting in gravel, I did not permit that.
No, it just looked like it was gravel lined with cobblestones. I don't think there was any structures, maybe a bench eventually or something.
And that's up by the cul-de-sac, right? That's not, seemed to me that was further up the driveway.
It went along the driveway, but I couldn't tell from the plan how close to the 35-foot line that was. But
Yeah, so
saw it, I'm fine with
there's the plan. I mean, it's almost. It's a 35-foot back in this area here.
that. Yeah,
If it was along the driveway, it's definitely outside the 35-foot area.
okay. So I vote yes.
David Panett, I vote yes.
John Sullivan, yes.
Carl Sacconi, yes.
Scott Keefe in favor.
Administrator's report, is that where we're at, Mike?
53 Arcadia Ave. Hagstrom.
Yeah,
Is that
they
not done
haven't,
yet?
yeah, so
I'm sorry.
Hagstrom,
I'm sorry, I keep on putting on mute. I was asking 53 Arcadia Ave, is there anything new on that one?
there's not.
Okay. And same thing with Pearl Street? I think that's still just out there.
Two
right
small
now, right?
streets we just talked about, and then Pearl Street, nothing's happened on any of those.
Yeah, okay. So administrative report. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure.
So 21 Wilson Street, you sent us a letter that you sent to the property owner?
So so this isn't even something that I saw. The DPW contacted me and said that, you know, I was called out to Wilson Street too, you know, by the DPW on another property. So it seems like they're trying to maintain this stream channel and keep yard waste out of it. I didn't hear from the homeowners, but I sent out this letter. I hope it's on the screen. Just a picture I got from the DPW department. I highlighted, you know, what was considered yard waste, dumping over the fence that's in the background, and then a discussion given, you know, our authority, what we're expecting, and if they had any questions to give me a call. Pretty standard letter from the conservation office. I haven't heard from them. I suspect I would hear from the DPW department sooner than from the homeowners. So that's where that is.
Okay.
The other thing that we had is Track Road, and
Is Chuck muted?
No, I'm just mumbling.
Oh, okay.
So I sent out an email, and I wouldn't have sent this out unless I thought we were going to be making a decision about a couple of extra trees on the track road project where they're replacing the bridge. But as it turns out, the 8-inch cherry tree was mislabeled. It is actually a 24-inch, I don't think it's a cherry, I forgot what it is, but it was already approved to come down. So that is no longer an issue. And the other trees that the contractor asked to remove was because he couldn't swing the bridge into place with them there. So there will be a replacement for each one of those 2 trees, but they had to come down, and I gave approval for that because it was pretty clear that it was overlooked for that span. So that's all I have about those 2. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but that's where they're at. And I'm going to mention the enforcement order on 14 Dean Street. And they finished, but didn't finish reviewing their plan. And they would like to meet with me next week at some point to review it and give the approval to start on the retaining wall. And then after that, hydro seed. So that's been moving along. They're pretty responsive. So I was gonna say Greg Erickson, but it's Norse Environmental, Steve Erickson, is managing that for them, and he's keeping up with the plans and communication. So it's moving along as we expected.
Okay.
What about the Veterans Way? That was mentioned in the.
Jackie might be in. Is Jackie here? Yes. So
think she
Jackie
is,
might
yeah.
want to talk to Veterans Way Commission. I see her right there. So I'll just set it up a little bit. So Veterans Way is a 4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 5-lot subdivision, I think, or maybe 6. Are you saying 6?
5.
5. It's 5-lot subdivision. Only 3 of the lots are in the zone, in the 100-foot buffer zone. The last lot, which is number 5, is being finished right now. The street and the cul-de-sac, the parking that was required by the Conservation Commission, and the trail to Kirchian Woods are unfinished. And I asked Jackie to come in and to talk about a plan. And I think that some of the owners are contacting the office, and they want to get along with their projects. And I know that the Trails Committee wants to understand when this is going to get finished. And what I'm hearing from Will Finch is that it sounds like there's material out there that's supposed to be removed, and I'm not sure, but I wasn't at the last site visit. I was at the one before that, which didn't look like there was any material that needed to be removed. The ground was used as a stockyard, a stockpile area for gravel and whatnot, and some bigger stones. Not sure. I thought the conversation had to do with just spreading mulch over what's there. So that's what I know, and maybe Jackie can fill the commission in on the rest of it. Hi,
Yeah, so
Jackie.
hi. So I met with Will Finch on site, and when we met, he had said, you know, at this point, some branches had fallen. There were some rocks coming up that basically needed to be raked back to get that path up to Snub. And I kind of explained to him, you know, it wasn't high alert to get this path done because I knew people were going and kind of still using it as a way to access one of the lots back there. And he advised me just get it done. So I have the landscaper scheduled for next week to kind of just scratch whatever's out there, clean it up, get any twigs, rocks, whatever out of that area. And then also I need a meeting with Will Finch, which I'll book by the end of this week to kind of go over the placement of my trees that are on my site plan. And from there I can do my loom. So path, trees.
You don't mean Will Finch, you mean Mike Hannaford. Are you meeting with Will Finch to place trees?
I thought so, right?
For where, on the path?
No. For this is around the, hold on one second. Oh, the tree warden, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, Mike Hannaford, okay, just.
Sorry.
There, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I owe him a call by the end of this week, so he can tell me where my trees need to be placed. And then we can just wrap it up. I'm having some trouble getting a granite curb guy there. I've had 2 booked and both of them have blown me off. So I'm in the process of working with someone that says they're 3 weeks out. So I can send you an email or something.
So what's your expectation of finishing the roadway, the parking, the curbing, the trail, another month,
Well, so Will had asked me that I get the trail done first. So that's kind of the priority. And then in terms of the curbing and paving the road, if the weather turns, I can't guarantee you it's a month. So I'm assuming if the weather turns, it's going to be spring and I'll come for a certificate of completion on that road. So.
Okay.
Yep.
So Will and the Trails Committee will be happy as long as you have the landscaper rake out the rocks and then establish that trail. Okay,
Yep.
And that can happen pretty soon. And then it may be spring because I know, the plants close down at a certain time and you can't get asphalt anymore.
Yeah.
So
we'll see. I mean, ideally I'd like to get it done, but I can't guarantee you because if the weather turns, it's out of my control. So.
Sure, and you understand that the commission is going to hold the occupancy and the certificate of compliance up until we see the trail, Will happy, the Trails Committee happy, not just Will. Will's just a spokesman for the Trails Committee, but he's usually the one with the most energy. So, Will and the Trails Committee have to kind of agree with what is happening at the trail, the parking, the curbing, all that has to be finished. And what's happened to the commission in the past, and I've told you on site visits too, that, if you sell the property and the homeowner wants to move in, it's just a lot of pressure. But on this one here, we have too much riding on it. So we really want to make sure that you understand that the occupancy and the certificate of compliance are going to be held up until the conservation requirements and the order of conditions are completed.
Okay.
Any questions, Mike?
No, I think that's right in line, and I think that's consistent with what we've been doing on other things where this rides on it.
Is the drainage?
So, okay, that's what I was gonna say. Is there a drainage structure or a basin or what?
So there's a catch basin at the back of the cul-de-sac, pretty close to where the trail is. And we cut it, and item is in stock, and I have an excavator coming, but he's 2 weeks out to put it in. So he's just got to basically, all the underground is done, but he's got to actually put the structure in the ground. But we got somebody over there, they cut it out. That was last week, I think. And then we'll go from there.
And so that's not discharging into the detention basin, is it?
No.
You have it blocked?
Yeah.
Okay. And the detention basin is finished?
Aside from being hooked up to that drain, yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
it looks like it's vegetated and it was regraded in one area, but that's been vegetated again. And I know that lot 3 and 4 were approved for some artesian wells. So I think they're trying to move forward with their I don't know, life or whatever. They just want to do things on their own property. So anyways, that's all I had. I don't know if the commission has any questions. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear about what we expect. And I know you're getting pressure from the Trails Committee, but it sounds like you're addressing those issues, and that's fine. That's great.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Anything else, Jackie?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Chuck, is there anything else? Besides any
So
bills?
there's a water bill that came in. I don't know the exact amount, so that is going to have to wait. And there's minutes.
Anybody have the chance to review the minutes from September 23rd and have any comments?
I looked at them, I didn't see any changes.
No changes.
Can I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of 9/23/20.
Anika Scanlon, I'll second.
Michael Flynn in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
David Panett in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Scott Keith in favor.
Okay. Anything else, Chuck? Something I missed?
Just want to give you a heads up, maybe just because people know this area, so the animal clinic is going to be coming to us at our next meeting. They're increasing their parking area and doing some building. And we'll send out that notice of intent. I'll let you look at it, but they're proposing parking just outside the 35-foot line. So where it hadn't existed before. But that'll come in, and it's a big project. So if anyone has an opportunity to look at it before the next meeting, that would be great. It will certainly be on the site visit agenda.
Chuck, just from a historic standpoint, did they come to us at one point and ask for advice, right, of what they thought they could do? Was that them? Because isn't there like a house that there's a private driveway that leads to like a house back there? I remember like this is when I learned that house
Yes.
existed.
Yes, there is a house back there.
So that the only time it came to us is when they were so they had to give the town first right of refusal on the land that the animal clinic purchased to do this project.
That's
And
right.
they had to
Okay.
pay back all the back taxes on that. The commission didn't feel like it was a big issue, and that there's another piece of property still out there, and that would be the one that would be more of an issue. A delineation had taken place, and the wetlands are quite close to where they're proposing to build this driveway. But outside of that, that's the only background I know.
No, that's what it was. The last right of refusal or first right of refusal, whatever it was. Okay. All right. With that, do I
Chuck,
hear a
wait,
motion?
are those
Oh.
signs in, the bike signs? Did you ever hear from anybody over there?
Oh, yeah, they're ready. You could pick those up, and we'll have Will, who was happy to put them up the last time. Maybe he'll put up these ones also.
Okay, so I can go grab them then.
What are you doing, man?
I'm
I'm dizzy.
retreating.
I'm getting dizzy.
His office space in the basement.
It's the only safe spot at 7:02 in the evening.
All right.
That's where I always figured you were. All right, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All those in favor, please raise your
Aye.
hands.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.